Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com. Welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast. Today's safety tip is brought to you by Kinetic, the wearable safety device that reduces workplace injuries by over 50%. Learn more at wearkinetic.com. Hey, it's Kevin Lawn with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. Today's episode is the latest in our partnership with Material Handling Wholesaler magazine for their February issue. Check out the cover story featuring today's guests entitled Lithium-Ion Threatens Lead-Acid Batteries Dominance in Material Handling at mhwmag.com, and you can check out all of the issues at mhwmag.com. So we're going to talk about batteries in the material handling industry today and kind of the current state of that. So on today's podcast, I'm excited. I have the most guests that I've ever had on a podcast episode. We got 5 guests today. So we have David Suarez. He is the VP of Business Development at OneCharge. Robin Schneider is Director of Marketing at Green Cubes Technology. Harold Van Ass, who's been on the podcast a couple times before. He's the Senior Director of Motive Power Marketing at Enersys. Chris French is President at PowerBat. And John Gelsomino is the President at Archon Equipment. So they're going to talk to us about the current state of batteries, what they think is going on, and kind of where lithium-ion stands as well. So we're going to go around the virtual room here, and we're going to get not just one safety tip today. We're going to get 5 safety tips from everybody, and they're going to give a brief little intro on what their company does. So I'll go to John first. So John, why don't you give us a little safety tip and your...
Sure, thanks, Kevin. So first, thanks for having me. I'm John Gelsomino. The name of my company is Archon Equipment. We are a battery agent in Cleveland, Ohio, and we represent Rico products, Sunlight batteries on lead acid, and we sell some Flux Power, Blue Line, and Sunlight lithium batteries on the lithium side. We're early adopters in lithium, and we've gotten pretty deep in it in a serious way, but we could talk about that. So my safety tip is to always press the power button before you open up a lithium battery.
All right. Very good. Very good. So let's go to Chris French from PowerBat, and let's hear that safety tip and a little bit about PowerBat.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Again, my name is Christopher French, President of PowerBat USA, based in Minnesota. I'm kind of an outlier here in this group, quite frankly, because we don't deal in lithium batteries at all.
Okay.
So I will bring a different perspective.
That's
we
good.
Keep an eye on that lithium market, from a different angle, quite frankly. Our product basically works to desulfate and recondition lead plates. It is a patented product that was designed originally for the military. And the original inventor of it, his name is Pavel Belzenka, okay? It's a name people in the lead acid industry may recognize. He's from Europe. But anyways, we can work on starter, stationary, motive batteries. Our product is scientifically reviewed and is currently being reviewed again. My safety tip would be to make sure the tools you're using are rubber-coated or heat-shrinked, so as not to short circuit and start your hair on fire.
Yes, we don't want to get our hair on fire. That's a very, very good one, Chris. Thank you, and thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's throw it over to David. Let's get that safety tip. David is from OneCharge.
David Suarez, and thanks again for having me. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at OneCharge Lithium Systems, and we focus on that material handling with the OEM focus and then the aftermarket battery specialist channel and then through the dealer channel. So we have a wide depth and breadth in the market. Safety tip for me is, it's kind of general. It doesn't really matter the technology you're using, but definitely use PPE And if I can slant it just a little bit,
Sure.
OSHA definitely has statistics out that battery injuries happen when it's either servicing or swapping. So consider lithium for sure.
Okay, very good. And Harold, how about you?
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show again. It's great to be back. I'm Harold Vanette, Senior Director of Marketing for Enersys for Motive Power, for our Motive Power business. Enersys is the world's largest industrial power supplier, so we're in the motive power business, we're in the reserve business, stationary business, aerospace, defense, medical. So we do batteries and charging systems and monitoring systems and all that sort of management systems across the globe for a lot of industries. My safety tip. So when you're charging a fork truck battery, and you want to disconnect it, please turn the charger off first. Just don't pull that cable and do it without charging it. I know sometimes you have to stop a charge. Well, press the button, stop the charger, and then disconnect.
Very good one. Very good one. Easily forgotten, too. So let's get it from Robin. What kind of safety tip do you got? And give us a little intro about Green Cubes.
Hi, I'm Robin Schneider. I'm the marketing director for the Motive Group at Green Cubes Technology. We have been manufacturing batteries for material handling equipment for about 10 years, all lithium ion. So we're one of the early entries into the material handling lithium ion market. My safety tip, I'm going to build a bit on what David said. We think of battery injuries as being these sort of catastrophic events with explosions and fire and acid and those things, and really it's the more mundane injuries that are more common, like repetitive use injuries and back injuries from lifting and things like that. So again, moving from lead acid to lithium will really reduce the number of workplace injury claims that an organization has to deal with, and that's something that's to be considered in the cost of ownership of the technology.
Okay, very interesting, and thanks for sharing that safety tip from everybody. It seems like actually a lot of the safety tip is based around some things that you may think are common sense, but easily, so very good reminders and definitely things that we want to put out there on the floor for employees who are dealing with this type of equipment and making sure that they are staying safe. Hey y'all, I just want to take a quick break to let you know about an upcoming event focused on sustainability. It's called Shaping the Future of Sustainable Business at Sustainability Live, and will be at Tobacco Dock in London on February 23rd and 24th, 2022, or you can attend virtually via online platform Brella. Industry pioneers from the world's leading businesses such as IBM, PwC, and SAP will join together to discuss their own commitments, learn about others, and create meaningful partnerships. Like no other conference, Sustainability Live is centered around actionable relationships. That means getting the right people in the same place, sparking conversation, and creating partnerships that literally change the world. Be a part of the change and get your free virtual tickets or in-person tickets at sustainability-live.com. That's sustainability-live.com.
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
So, We're going to talk about batteries today, and we want to talk about, the current state of batteries in the material handling industry. There's been a lot of things going on in our industry, obviously, throughout the pandemic, and a lot of shifts in technology in all different aspects and different areas of our industry. So we're going to focus on the batteries today and how things may be changing for that and kind of what the current state is. So I think since Chris, said he's in a little bit of a different realm than everybody, I think we're going to start with Chris and kind of get his opinion on what the current state of batteries is. So Chris, can you share your thoughts with us?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious what's happening out there in the market. Lithium has got a lot of momentum because the batteries are good. They have some advantages that simply cannot be ignored. There are some disadvantages, however, that have to be overcome, and that's pretty typical when new technology comes to market. How fast that momentum continues, there are some factors, I think, beyond the lithium forklift battery market that will play a factor in that. Production, environmental, things of that nature that are kind of out of the control of that market specifically. Mm-hmm. So they're coming. They will play a role moving forward. There's no doubt. How much of the market they capture, that's what's in question, and I think the answers to that are yet to be really figured out. A lot of it will depend on, like I said, some other economic issues, EVs. So, but they're here to stay. There's no doubt.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And so I think I'm going to throw it to either John or Harold. You guys can pick who wants to go because you guys are, offering more than just lithium ion. So you're offering kind of different types of batteries as well. So, I mean, what are you seeing in terms of the kind of the demand out there?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
So we're seeing strong demand for both lead and lithium. Both are very good solutions and they fit different customer applications. We're seeing a lot of interest and a lot of studies and a lot of analysis of both technologies. We see prices, both lithium and lead are inflationary. There's prices and lead times being extended. So there are a lot of commonalities. But I'd say the current state of motive power is extremely strong. ITA for January, there was huge gains in electric truck. So large that I'm not sure that it's not a reporting issue, but nonetheless, electric is very, very strong and it started the year off strong.
Okay. Yeah, I totally see that. Since the pandemic has sort of come in, we've got this pent-up demand. Trucks are at an all-time high, and state of the batteries for them, there's lots out there. Lead acid is still strong, but you see lithium and maintenance-free technologies coming in. When we look at it at EnerSys, and when I look at it when I analyze things, we're going from a time of conventional lead acid technology driving the fork truck industry, 3 batteries per truck, and you would charge, shift, use, and cool down. But that we started to see fast charge, opportunity charge coming in where you would not have to change that battery, where the lead acid battery could be fast charged on the truck. You're still doing maintenance though. And now we see lithium and for us, thin plate pure lead, we have both technologies there coming in again in that maintenance free realm. And that's what people want. They want maintenance free. They don't want to have to change. They don't want to have to water. They don't want to have to clean the battery. So I think that's just, that is the trend that's happening. I agree with Chris. I don't think it's going away. I think that's what people are going to get used to. It's the question of, as we come into the technology curve or down the technology curve on these maintenance-free technologies, especially lithium, does it predominate?
Okay, very interesting, and I think that's definitely a key point there is maintenance free. I mean, I think people are certainly attracted to that, especially as we look at labor shortage and not having to worry about having people to maintain these batteries and take care of those things as well.
And and warehouse automation is another factor, right? If you're automating what you're doing, you don't have people to do it. Again, it's about a people reduction,
right?
Because you can't get labor. So the technologies that tend to drive that, and whether they're lithium, whether they're lead, that it's maintenance free, that I think is the driver.
Yes, absolutely, definitely, I agree. And so, Robin, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that Harold's absolutely right that maintenance-free, 24/7 operation and a focus on throughput is really, really important for people in warehousing. The other thing that I want to not ignore is the importance of regulatory changes, and we see the electrification of motor vehicles in general and a switch away from internal combustion engines. And that's actually driving the adoption of lead as well as lithium ion. So I think some of the environmental regulations don't just push to lithium ion, they also push to lead acid. And that's really important. But we're just really in the early adoption stage of lithium. We're at about, I think the market would basically drive to a consensus of about between 10 and 20% adoption of lithium, depending on who you ask. And what I've understood from various industry surveys is the expectation that lithium will overtake the majority of lead acid applications over the next 10 years or so.
Okay, interesting. And yeah, I think it sounds like there's certainly a push towards lithium ion from what you guys are saying, and obviously it is gaining traction and popularity for some of the reasons I think Harold kind of pointed out there as well. But let's hear from David as well. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think there's a couple trends, right? So it's going to be encompassing. So e-commerce, productivity, those trends are here, right? The now economy is driving that uptime or that demand. I think capital budgets, right? So, running lean in regards to, having truck inventory. I think those things. Fast charge, like the team said, right? Lithium can be charged very, very fast. Maintenance free, but I want to put an asterisk on that, right? So there is maintenance and attention given to lithium. It is no watering involved, and I think there's some implications for interjecting risk into your operation when you are maintaining a battery. So, and then there's individual cost and operational costs that can be impacted by going to lithium. And then the emissions, right? The executive order in California is going to drive that electric truck slant, right? So that's going to go up. Lithium, we see that in more and more in demand for those, now 24/7. And there's even an argument for the two-shift realm, right? So where lithium had if you're running 3 shifts and those kind of things, as the cost of lithium goes down, as we see the market change and shift, and people are being educated, and I'm going to make up a word here, re-educated, right? So what they know of lithium is changing. I think those are going to help accelerate that. So the current state of batteries for me in the industry is, lead is there. It is a staple. It is what they know. And lithium is that tomorrow technology. And we really are in the very infancy stage of lithium adoption. There are some larger organizations shifting, and those are lead steers, right? So when you see those in your industry, whether it's paper, whether it's cold storage, when you see those lead steers going in that direction, some of those smaller entities and some of those other industries will follow. So I expect it over the next 10 years, by 2030, to go up considerably, lithium adoption.
Okay, very interesting. So I mean, it sounds like people are definitely recognizing it, as you said, kind of getting re-educated on lithium ion and kind of gravitating towards that. And I noticed in the article, which you all kind of contributed some quotes to as well for MHW Mag, it talked a lot about the some of the benefits of lithium ion. But I'm curious, as all new technologies and not necessarily new technologies, but technologies that are now kind of being more maybe favored and adopted at a more rapid rate, there's always some challenges. So I'm curious, what are some of the challenges with lithium ion adoption, whether it's market factors or the technology itself? So why don't we start with David on this one?
Perfect. So some of the challenges we see is that capital budget, right? Having the budget for a fleet. So switching from lead to lithium is typically 2 times, right? And so there has to be a deep dive, and there has to be a discussion with the customer, and you cannot really cut corners on this. You have to understand their operation. You have to do a power study or a site survey, and you have to understand it, right? So because when you're taking that lithium in, there's such a large cap cost behind it, you need to start tracking that ROI, and then we go into telemetry, we go into reporting, all those things that come with lithium. So the challenge really is that upfront cost. I think it's a little bit of shock, to the procurement and to the operators on that, and again, you have to educate at multiple levels within that. So, yeah, I would think cap cost.
Okay, very interesting, and I think I saw that with but eventually, it seems like the total cost of ownership ends up being less. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, but that upfront is certainly a challenge. So John, what do you think are some challenges with the lithium ion?
So once it's installed in the customer's fleet, I would say over discharging is probably one of the main things that we deal with. It's not really a problem of the technology, it's a problem of the application and the customer's use of it. Okay. Lithium has a lot of BMS safeguards and different things that are programmable, and sometimes we find ourselves just tweaking. Again, not at the fault of lithium, it's just something that's different for the end user than lead. In the same time, there are many challenges that they have with lead that are not existent with lithium. So the coolest thing I would think is, because the lithium the voltage is linear, what's the most enjoyable is that the operator says that the unit performs better with lithium, and it doesn't actually perform better, but it performs at the full performance of the battery for the entire time of the charge. And so when you demo, but you hear the operator, it runs better on lithium. I'm like, well, it doesn't really, but it feels like it because you've got that full voltage. But to David's point, the demo process, the sale process, it's enjoyable because it's a challenge, but you could fundamentally change an entire application and operation, and there's only so many things you sell that could do that type of thing.
Okay, interesting. And can you explain a little bit, you mentioned some of the challenges, I think you said excessive discharge, right? So talk to us a little bit about what is that for listeners that might not be familiar.
Well, so every brand is different, but lithium likes to run in that middle band. And so every brand has different ways they safeguard the bottom end. But sometimes if they ignore the warnings, the audible alarms, if they ignore the lift lockout, if that's integrated, when it gets to an over discharge state, some manufacturers want the service provider to take a look before it allows to charge. And then, as David said, we could do that in many cases through the telematics. You make sure there's nothing that's a problem, and then you could remotely close the charge contactor, and then it's charged without a service tech on site. So again, it's not the fault of lithium. It's just one of the things that, especially on small little walkie jacks, they run them till they're dead. Yeah. And then, there's just some additional stuff that goes on.
Gotcha. Okay. So more on the side of user error is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's more of a discipline of the user, and training and understanding is really the situation there.
Got it. Okay. Understood. And Chris, what do you think are some challenges with lithium ion?
Well, I think in a broader view, there are some environmental factors. There are obviously the price points up front, which has already been discussed here. That's an issue that people have to deal with. But I think ultimately production of lithium is going to be where there are some issues. if the EV market comes online the way people are predicting, there could be a supply issue. At some point, the price of lithium batteries, that price curve is going to flatten out. Where it flattens out, I think, is going to be, that's the question. They may be driving prices down now, but if we see a supply issue, that could change. So to me, I think the biggest issue moving forward, long term, is production of lithium in general. And again, I go back to the EV market. A lot of these countries are committing to banning combustible engines, which to me seems crazy, quite frankly. But if they go down that road, and even just one of those countries actually moves forward, say by 2030, there is going to be a production issue of lithium. There's no question about that. And then again, recycling. There's another one that's a pain point for lithium. That has to be addressed. You know, lithium, other technologies, the whole idea in general has always been resolve the pain points, right, of this technology. Lithium does that, but it also creates some pain points as well. So production, recycling, those upfront costs, to me, those are the big issues.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about the recycling after we get through this question. But Robin, what do you think are some challenges with lithium ion adoption?
So I think what everybody is touching on a little bit is that the technology is fundamentally better or more suitable for these motive applications, but there's still quite a bit of infrastructure challenge to having lithium ion have widespread adoption, because there is this whole ecosystem built around lead acid batteries for everything from the power studies, as David mentioned earlier, to the recycling, as Christopher just mentioned. So we really have, challenges from the installation, who's going to do the servicing, how does the distribution network work, how do we decommission batteries? All of that stuff is a challenge just because the industry is in relative infancy. Mm-hmm. And things like, for example, the information that is available from the batteries. So part of the advantage of lithium ion isn't the chemistry itself, it's the electronics that are married to the chemistry, and they provide a lot of information, safety, protection. But the established communication for the battery is, in lead acid batteries, traditionally through the charger. So how do we get information off of the lithium ion battery? Do we have to have some kind of remote interface for it? How does the operator see what the charge is on the battery while they're driving it around? All of that stuff is difficult in this sort of like retrofit situation. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. So some trucks will integrate with the battery, and they're designed to do that. Some of them you need a remote interface. Sometimes you have to communicate through the charger. Sometimes you can communicate through the Wi-Fi network. And we haven't really settled on any way to do any of these things that's completely universal. So that's just a challenge that I'm sure eventually the industry will land on some kind of standard, but we're just not there yet. And that's across the board from, installation all the way through decommissioning of the battery.
Interesting. Okay. So kind of like the overall life cycle and kind of getting it in place and then figuring out how does the end life look as well. So very interesting. And Harold, last year, what are some of the challenges with lithium ion adoption?
I think everybody here has covered basically all of the main topics. And,
okay.
And, as I'm sitting and listening here, the thing that strikes me is, we're used to an almost 100-year-old industry of industrial fork trucks and lead acid batteries. And we're so early in the lithium world, right? And you can see it. All of these challenges are brand new as you're early on in the technology curve. They'll get solved. They'll absolutely get solved. Will they be solved to the same way that we have lead? Probably not, but but they'll have their own solutions that will come, and we've just got to work our way through that. Chris brought up recycling. That's a perfect example. That's so early on, and I know we want to talk about that a little bit more. That's so early on, but every single one of these, from price, from global availability, to integrating into the vehicles, to charging infrastructures, to education. Hey, operators, you use this a little differently. And here's how we want you to do it. With lead, we didn't want you to plug in quite all the time. With flooded traditional, with a thin plate pure lead product, you can plug in all the time. But same with lithium. Plug in like your phone. Plug in all the time. That solves some issues, but they're not wired that way yet. So the operators. So we've got work to do, but it's to be expected. We're early in.
Definitely, yeah. And I think a good point about the kind of the way the operators ingrained into the old technology and now trying to get them to come over. So one thing actually Chris touched on in there, I think, was the supply and the supply for lithium, and will that be able to be somewhat sustainable, it sounds like. And I'm curious, I'll just open this to whoever wants to answer, but obviously what we're dealing with in supply chain in general has been shortages of so many different things. So I mean, with lithium ion or even batteries in general, I mean, are we seeing any challenges in terms of shortages getting new batteries or getting batteries to customers?
I'm going to jump in.
Sure.
On the lithium side, it for me, the supply chain is there. There's more and more lithium mines coming online.
Yeah.
When you look at the cell at the cell level that builds that pack, it is really 1%, right? Okay. So it goes on the anode, and it's such a small amount of lithium that is used per cell, right? So for me, I don't agree with Chris in regards to there's going to be a production or a supply issue in regard to the raw mineral, right? So to me, I don't see that. I definitely would like to have a conversation offline, dig down in that with Chris.
I wasn't speaking specifically for lithium forklift batteries. Just the market in general, all lithium batteries. If the EV market really comes online, I mean, they're talking hundreds of, thousands of cubic tons of lithium that would be needed.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm speaking of, not specific to the forklift battery itself, the lithium.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah, across, whether it's in a EV vehicle, whether it's in an industrial truck, those cells, that percentage of lithium used in those cells across those platforms range to be the same. I don't see those challenges in regards to the supply chain, for the lithium side of it. I really don't.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
I think where you've seen supply chain challenges across the industry are things like electronics, transportation. You've had cost drivers drive everything up because costs and inflationary pressures are up. But I think, where everyone has seen things is electronics, right? BMSs in our batteries, chargers, anything with electronics has had a delay or a challenge getting it. You pay more to get the components. So those will pass. I think everyone knows that. We're working through a pent-up demand. How long is it before they pass? There's all kinds of predictions. I've heard everything from, hey, it's going to take the rest of 2022 to get the supply chain up and running. So, but I think across the board you see that. I mean, truck lead times are out very long. They're seeing it. I mean, automobile industry, you've got cars sitting on lots waiting for chips so they can finish trucks and deliver them. I mean, it's not just material handling. It's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right, any other thoughts?
We see it on the lead acid side. Where we've seen it a lot is with golf cart batteries and scrubber batteries.
Interesting.
We get calls constantly because people simply cannot purchase new batteries, which works in our favor, of course, considering what we do in our technology, but we definitely see it there. Yamaha, Club Car, places like that. They place orders and it's 6 months, and if you're in Minnesota, guess what? The golf season's over. So that's an issue.
That's true, yeah.
Hey, Chris, we have some batteries. We can help you with that.
Thank you.
So I guess a lot of people playing more golf during the pandemic, right? When they're supposed to be working at home virtually, right?
Working from home.
Yeah, working from home, right? And quotes on the golf course, right? So very interesting stuff there. I was curious about that as Chris kind of mentioned that in there. So now I'm curious too, we mentioned some of the benefits. Obviously, Harold, I think, pointed out a big one earlier, the maintenance free. But what are some other kind of big factors that are kind of pushing companies from switching from lead acid to lithium ion? And I kind of leave this one open as well if anybody wants to throw anything out there.
Kevin, before we move on from the supply chain topic, can
sure.
I just make, I think, an important point and maybe open it up to the group just to see if everybody is in agreement with me on this? It's important for people in material handling to understand that there are different kinds of lithium-ion batteries, and the electric vehicle market has, for the most part, settled on a subset of lithium-ion using an NMC cathode material in a cylindrical cell format, and that's basically the fundamental building block that an electric vehicle like a Tesla is built on. Okay. The material handling industry, for the most part, has settled on lithium iron phosphate chemistry subset of lithium ion in a prismatic or a brick-shaped cell format. And there is some advantage to that in that we're not really competing for the cells or the cathode material with the electric vehicle market. So we haven't seen as many supply chain issues as the electric vehicle market has. And also some of the mining problems that have come up around cobalt and some of the other metals in that nickel cobalt chemistry don't exist for the batteries that are being used in material handling because they're iron-based cathode, and iron is a much more common and easily obtained ore than manganese, cobalt, and nickel. So I know that's quite a geeked out topic there, but I think it's important to understand that when we hear these news reports about lithium shortages, that they're not necessarily entirely applicable to the material handling industry, at least for the majority of suppliers.
So that's a good point. But so from a distributor standpoint, because we don't manufacture, it is concerning. I'm a big fan of iron phosphate, but it is also concerning because when a manufacturer builds this battery around this cell structure and gets UL approval and all of these investments, and then in the blink of an eye, if that cell is no longer available at some point down the road, you're back to the drawing boards. There's a whole thing. So the question is, and again, I believe iron phosphate is absolutely the right chemistry for material handling. But my concern is, okay, there's a long warranty, there's product support, there's secondary life cycle. We'll even be able to get some of these cells. They probably will be new designs and smaller formats and higher energy densities. So there's pros and cons. If you use the scale of the automotive and what's common in the automotive, there could also be some significant advantages. But again, the marketplace will work it all out. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a great point, John. And I'll jump in. We're an NMC. We're an NMC company right now, so that's what we use. And again, it's because of higher energy density. Also, we believe that's the way the auto market's going to go. And let's face it, to Chris's point, if they come on board, full board, that's going to drive production, and it's also going to drive economies of scale. The other thing we look at is the changing technology. So NMC today certainly is going to be different from NMC in the future, same with LFP. Hey, there's 4, 5, 6 other type of couplets out there, like electrochemical combinations of lithium and their various oxides and different metals that make this. So I've seen things that show that we move away from even the LFP, NMC things into different pairings over time, and gets us more energy density and away from different metals. The challenge is what is it's going to be, and then building your system so that you can accommodate those changes. Because you're right, you change it, you got to go back through UL, and your systems change.
And to that point, from a distributor view, I want profitable suppliers.
Yep.
And if it's constantly changing and constantly re-UL rating, and there's this constant capital investment, I worry about the profitability of the supplier's products that I'm selling. And that's a real issue. But again, the market will sort that out.
Absolutely.
There will be consolidation. There will be all types of things. None of this is negative. It's the reality of the stage of where lithium's at. And because of that, I look at it as a great opportunity, because all of this change and all of these things that we're talking about, for people that know stuff and are there in the right timing of it, there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of customers to be supported.
Absolutely.
I think Benton cleanup on this, it's, regardless of the cell geometry, we're going to see Tesla on entry-level models use LFP and NMC across, right? If you want longer range, we're going to see that. And John, we're really not going to get out of that, the advancements in cells, right? Energy density, all those things you spoke about. You really can't look at the market that way, because from a one charge world, right, through my filter, we're really chemistry agnostic, right? So if somebody comes out with a silicone or whatever it is, whatever the combination is, we're going to be able to fold that in, right, into our engineering, into our solution. So we're going to be able to curb some of that for you, right? So those distributors, those large distributors out there, we're going to be able to fold that in. Now, will there be challenges? Of course, there'll be challenges in regards to the charger, what have you, but those can be programmable, right? That BMS is so flexible, we'll be able to do that. So definitely economy of scale, having that will drive the cost down. But there's always new technologies in regards to cell. But the geometry, to me, cell geometry, whether it's prismatic or cylindrical or pouch, whatever it is, right, the solution will be worked out at that engineering level, kind of what you mentioned, right? So for me, I think simply we're in a market where technology is king, and when that new cell comes out, the EnerSys, the Green Cubes, the One Charges will be able to really flex with that. So we'll be able to get it to the distributors, be able to do that in a timely fashion. And we have guys in assets, right, forward looking, and we're always doing cell validation. So definitely.
David, to your point, that's the key to survival, and that's, I think, right. Again, you work through these with industry consolidation like you would with any product in any industry over the last 1,000 years. And I think that's the position we have with EnerSys. Again, I love chemistry agnostic. We say it all the time. Hey, we got right. flavors of lead, flavors of lithium, systems to back it up. We'll help you size it. Hey, you want to spend X amount? We got a product for that. You want to spend Z amount? Here's a product for that. And get into the discussion, because we'll go back to we're early in the adoption, and customers we need to help them think through it. I heard power studies. I heard, great conversations about getting folks into the math of it. That's what we got to do, because it's still an education process. Put the right chemistry in the right place, and it'll change over time, and we'll be there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. John, we'll get you the product.
Oh, I know. And again, it's not negative. It's opportunity, right. Because
absolutely
in the local market, every truck dealer does not deal with that.
Right.
And so my point is the opportunity lies that all of this figuring and all of this product support, we want to be the expert's expert and work with multiple brands of lithium to help bridge all these gaps, charging the lithium and reprogramming chargers. That's the opportunity that I see, because again, it's not going to be for everyone. All these years, the truck dealer still doesn't want to be in the battery game, even though they're trying to be today. So the support of lithium is where we focus significantly, because in every local market, and there needs to be someone. You can't put a guy on an airplane every time you need a fuse installed.
Right. And I think it's organizations like that, like yours, right? Like you're hinting at, is simply, it's our job as the manufacturer to really educate you, train the trainer, if you will, bring you up to speed, because that network is integral to our growth, right? Yep. So when we look at that through multi-channel in segmentation of the market, we're going to look at those territories. We're going to go, hey, you know what? My footprint's here. I mitigate that. Again, that strategic partnership, you're an early adopter of lithium. Your guys are more astute, right? So you work across multiple brands, those things. You can really pick your dance partner in that regard. But I think in you selecting who you sell or what your team sells is really going to be based on the support you get from the manufacturer manufacturer. So we have to support you, educate you, give you the materials. And it's constant, right? Remedial training, quarterly training, and certifications, right? So I know we're not going to touch on that, but I could definitely talk about standardization across lithium and really just giving you guys the knowledge to really fix the system and know it as well. Before it was kind of protected, but we definitely have to support you guys.
So very interesting discussion there. Thank you, Robin, for making that point. And definitely, it seems like there's a lot of other conversations to be had there as well. So we'll have to do maybe a part 2 in the future or something like that. So let's jump into, the kind of got brought up a little bit when we were talking about some of the challenges. And I think in the cover story, I want to say maybe it was Harold that had a quote in there about the sustainability and recycling of lithium ion. So I'm curious to hear about this, because obviously with new technologies as they kind of come online, there's always that probably initial that like, oh, this is effective, it's useful in this, and then we kind of get to the later on in life and realize that like, oh, we made something great, but now how do we get rid of it in a smart way that's good for the environment? So I'm curious, when it comes to lithium ion batteries, how is kind of recycling and the sustainability overall of this technology being handled within the supply chain? So David, you want to start on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So for One Charge, we look at it in really 3 phases. So our systems, we sell a system into the field and it's operating for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's on a lease, 3-year, 2-year option, comes back. We're able to really track that information through our telemetry and gaining the data. We're able to look at that and go, hey, there's 40% of the life left. So we may, and we see this today with systems that are 5 years old, the customers repurposing that themselves, where we were going to repurpose it in really that aftermarket channel for a single shift, maybe it's seasonal work, those type of things. So we take that system that we sell for chain of custody, right? So from cradle to grave, we look at it and we go, hey, you know what? We can we can take it off the customer's hands, and we know there's life in it. We communicate that to the customer. Hey, you got 40%. If you've got a customer, an application, whether you're an end user, we have an application that you should use this for, then we'll really share that with them, because my conversations are less around downtime and more around asset management when we're talking lithium, because we're able to track the usage of the batteries and where to use them and what's being overutilized or underutilized or those type of things, right? And through seasonality and usage, we're able to help, and that comes from the information we gather from the system. So we'll either repurpose the system, right? Or we'll put it in a second life application that is a stationary, right? So we'll take it out of that motive realm and we'll put it in a stationary. So that way, again, it could perform for another 4 years. So the life of that battery is running 9 years, right? So in the stationary with 40%, it's only being cycled when there's an event, right there's life in that battery. And then truly at end of life, so that third point, is we have, and you guys see it, I think there's been several announcements. There's one in Indiana, and there's another. So we're starting to do recycling here in the States. Everybody, I would think, as far as that chain of custody, has a strategic agreement with their cell provider, and I know we do, to send it back, right, for recycling. Now, we see those coming stateside. We're seeing the announcements more and more. I think there was one already this year that a facility is recycling lithium. So we're going to see that, the demand for it. And like you said, economy of scale, those larger groups, those EV organizations, right? They're driving some of that and funding some of that really on the recycling side. So for me, we're going to reclaim it, right? We're going to reuse it and put it in a lower application. We're going to really put it in a second life application. So our customers will send it to us. If they have no need for it, we'll go ahead and put it in another application, in another vertical. Or if the battery is compromised or it's really at true end of life, we'll recycle it with our manufacturer.
Okay, very interesting. So it seems like kind of the goal is to repurpose first before trying to figure out what to do in terms of recycling. Okay, and Robin, what are your thoughts on that, on the recycling and sustainability in the supply chain with lithium ion?
Our approach is really very similar to what David outlined. So It's important to recognize that the Definition of end of life for the first use of a lithium ion battery is 80% of its original rated capacity. And that number is relatively arbitrary. There is some drop off, an increased drop off in capacity after that 80%, but there's still a lot of life left in the battery. So our first approach would be to reuse it for either another application or to refurbish it for a second life. And then if that is not possible anymore, then we would take it back from the material handling user and recycle it with a recycling partner.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And Chris, what are your thoughts on this? Not being directly related in lithium ion.
My thought really is a question more than anything, which is the process is not settled. It will become settled through technology somehow, someday. My question is, when does it become profitable to recycle lithium batteries? Because I don't know if you're going to find a lot of takers, quite frankly, to recycle anything if they can't make money doing it. At the end of the day, whoever that recycling company is, they've got to be able to turn a profit. And
I could take that if you want, Kevin.
Sure. They can do a lot of stuff with grant money and things of this nature, but at some point, these companies have to be up and running and profitable and have a process in place. I want to know, how long is it going to take for that to happen?
All right. So what do you think, John? What are your thoughts there?
So we have other businesses and we have a long history in remanufactured products. And one thing that I know from that is that the OEM typically is focused on innovation and production and normally doesn't want to be involved in the secondary life cycle. And so to Robin's point, I think there's an opportunity, just like we sell reconditioned lead batteries and other things, I think that there's an opportunity for someone like myself to be reconditioning these batteries, getting them back. There is no scrap value. The banks still don't understand the residual value. I think the banks are undervaluing the batteries when they come off of lease. The wholesalers aren't sure what to do with them. The values that they're listing, because there aren't that many folks that want to get involved in that secondary life cycle, the wholesalers are seeing a disconnect. The customers aren't returning their chargers because they want to keep using them, and so there's a whole nother thing about reconditioned chargers that are reprogrammed for lithium. So I think there will be I don't think the OEM will be the master of the remanufacturing or the reconditioning. I think there will be folks like myself that understand the technology. You get a batch of batteries in, you match the cells, you reprogram a BMS, and you sell it as a reconditioned lithium product. Again, to do that effectively, you need to work with the OEM so you have the information and you have that. That's why we're trying to work at like an authorized service provider type model to do some factory warranty. If you look at the population of lithium in the United States, Ohio happens to be smack in the center of the majority of that eastern population. Chris's point, there is no scrap value. There's a scrap cost. And so everyone's going to have to, the end user will have to pay someone at some point, either in residual or in cash money. They're going to have to pay to dispose of it. Right now it's buried into the cost of all that, but as all this profitability washes out, it's going to be somewhere. But the better the marketplace and the guys like I can remanufacture, recondition, and make money doing that, I think private industry is who's going to handle this secondary life cycle. And if the OEM of the lithium can solve and have a partner or focus on innovation and that, they would much rather not be in the reconditioned business, because the volumes of things that are coming off are just going to be way more than anyone even cares to be involved in. So that's how I see it. Again, great opportunities, a lot easier said than done. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, the secondary market to me is, it could be gigantic, huge, and profitable. But at some point, that piece of equipment is going to go end of life. that's where my question comes into play. Who takes it? How do they make money recycling it?
It could be very similar to what you do with nickel cadmium batteries today. There's no scrap value for that. Hey, nickel's nice, but it costs a customer or somebody money. Yeah, right. We all have to take it back. So that could very well be the case where it's not, if you don't like a lead battery, you take it back, it's 99%, here's some cash. Sorry, that doesn't happen. Maybe with lithium. It may be the fact, but you build that into the economics of it, right? Because the benefits are out there for it. So that may be what we're looking at. There'll be, again, certain chemistries have more or less financial value for them, but I think it costs more to get at them. So it's just the way it is. And I have no doubt that we'll see more and more ability to recycle these things to a better degree. It's still in its infancy, but I think at least for the next few years, it's a cost.
And I think one thing that's interesting to think about when we do this, we're all in the United States, but if you look at the adoption of lithium, the U.S. or North America is really quite a bit behind Europe and Asia in terms of the adoption. And so the supply chain issues, some of the things that we're talking about have been addressed more in those areas. And if you look at Europe in particular, they've really gone towards more of leasing models at the OEM level for forklifts. And, the lifetime of lithium is so long, 10 plus years, that they're really getting to the point now where they're going to have to address these ends of life issues. So I think we'll all be looking to Europe and Asia and how they deal with this problem, because they're right there having to deal with it, where we're still a few years away from really having to end of life most of the batteries that started out in the field 8 years ago.
Well, to your point, Robin, we are a global company, and you've got more regulation in Europe than in some countries in Asia where there is an absolute requirement. You got to take them back. So the adoptions are higher. They're going to hit it. We're going to hit it over there sooner than here. But I think the same thing's going to happen. It'll get wrapped into the economics one way or the other, but we'll be taking them back.
All right. Well, very interesting points all around, and I think the conversation was really great, and we got some great information from all of you, and definitely very, very interesting battery talk, we'll call it, here today on the podcast. And it was great to have everybody on. So let's go around the room really quick as we wrap up here, and quick yes or no. Do you guys think 10 years from now that we'll all be on lithium ion, or will we still have some lead acid batteries in our field? And also, please let us know how we can find out more information about your company. So Harold, you want to start with that one? 10 years?
Sure.
Yes,
I don't think we'll be. No, we won't be all lithium. Certainly, I think you'll have late adopters that are going to still keep their flooded product, but I think we'll see thin plate pure lead, which is a lead acid product, lithium-like maintenance free, and then there's going to be a boatload of lithium out there as well. It's going to go maintenance free, no question.
Okay.
But in 10 years, there'll still be folks with their flooded fork truck batteries.
All right.
You can get information from us by going to Enersys.com.
All right. Thank you, Harold, for joining us today. And Robin, how about
Thanks
you?
for having me.
I totally agree with Harold. As much as I'm bullish on lithium, I think that there will still be some lead acid around. Lead acid has been around for more than 300 years, and I don't think that it's going to be gone anytime soon. So I agree. And from Green Cubes, you can go to greencubestech.com for more information.
All right. Thank you, Robin. And David, how about you?
Yeah, there will be lead acid batteries in 10 years. I think the part of the market they address will be tailored and be defined more so than it is today.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. For more information, onecharge.biz, and we have white papers, other educational things, studies, along with collateral there. So please visit.
All right. Thank you, David, for joining us. And Chris, how about you and PowerBat?
Definitely, lead acid will still be around.
All right.
There's new technology being studied on that. Harold does some neat stuff, the TPPL batteries. There can be combined technologies. If you looked at the chemistry of what they're doing with what we're doing, if you're talking about cycles, all of a sudden you've got something there for lead acid. So it'll be around, no doubt. For more information on our technology, you can just go to powerbatusa.com. There are some scientific reviews there as well, and another one coming soon.
Okay,
So
thank you,
very
Chris. And John, how about you? What do you think?
There will absolutely be lead acid batteries. There will also be internal combustion powered vehicles. The lead time for internal combustion is over a year, so there's strong demand for that. So it's exciting time. All of these are good solutions. And to get more information about Archon Equipment, go to archonequipment.com, ARCON. And thanks for having me.
All right. So thank you for everybody for coming on the podcast today. And we'll definitely post all those links so people can get in touch with you at thenewwarehouse.com. And if listeners are interested in reading the cover story, which also features some quotes and information from our guest today, they can go to mhwmag.com to read all about that and check out other issues as well. So thank you to everybody again for being on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.